Welcome to Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast. I'm your host, Vista Chamber CEO Rachel Beld, and it's my privilege to interview the movers, shakers, and change makers impacting our amazing Vista community and beyond. Today, I'm excited to welcome Joe Henschel, CEO of The Steeping Giant, a Vista-based cold brew coffee company that is now sold throughout Southern California. Joe's a Vista native and has a passion for brewing since his college days back at Cal State San Marcos. He uses that experience today, approaching cold brew coffee like brewing beer with a detailed focus on quality at every stage. The Steeping Giant brings small batch artisan cold brew experience to the masses. The Vista Chamber team is thankful to be one of those masses and to be your customer and to have Steeping Giant cold brew coffee right here in our offices at the Film Hub. And I'm enjoying a glass right now for those of you who can't see. Welcome, Joe. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Cheers. Absolutely. So, got to follow a cheers with a sip.
You do.
Absolutely. So the Steeping Giant started in 2016.
Yes.
In the back of a restaurant in San Marcos, right? So tell everyone the origin story. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah. So, it's a really long story, but I'll try to sum it up a little bit. I actually I didn't actually originally start the business, but I met the guys when they started it. And what I did is I was working in Orange County in marketing, and I met them and they showed me, they were literally in the back of a restaurant brewing in 5-gallon buckets, it's just very, very small. They were just kind of trying some stuff out. But the process that they were doing at the time was very unique. And I was like, hey, let me try that. And I tasted it. And I was like, wow, this is nothing like. In 2016, you didn't go to the grocery store. You didn't see a bajillion cold brew cans on the shelves. It was very new at that time. So I was like, man, this is good stuff. Let's look at, let's talk and see how we can work together. Cause I'm an entrepreneur in my head. In my head, I'm not an entrepreneur in my head. I am an entrepreneur. So in my head, constantly thinking about ways to grow businesses and everything. And at the time I was with a company in Orange County, a software company. I was with a company where they just went from really small to being massively huge. So I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a part of that growth. But I want to run it, So, I talked to the guys. We kind of talked about, hey, what is the business model here? And so we started off with hey, the business model is a subscription model. So what we'll do is we'll box up these cold brew pouches. And I don't know if you've ever seen our little pouches that we have. They're these little 1.5 liter pouches. They're really cool looking. They're vacuum sealed. It almost has the tap experience a little bit. But we're going to box those up. We'll do a monthly subscription to people. So we tried that and realized that the subscription business is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Shopify wasn't really doing that. Not a lot of these companies were really doing it. So there was a lot of crazy things we had to do, with software. That's where my background was. So it was just a lot of work, and it did okay. But I was like, there's something else to this business. There has to be another way. And so it was really crazy. It was there was this aha moment in about 2000, and it was 2017. I was working up in Orange County, and we were, I was just kind of talking, and I was like, man, what if we had this on tap in our office? And nobody was doing that at this time. There was really cool software companies that had beer on tap and maybe some kombucha on tap. If you've ever seen the WeWork story, they had, that was one of their main things that was very different when they opened up. I think that was actually around, 2015, 2000, something like that. But I was like, what if we had cold brew coffee on tap? And so I was like, guys, get a kegerator up here. Let's put a kegerator in the office that I was working at the time. And then we did that, and it was this is really cool. So everyone that walked in was like, is that beer? No, it's coffee. It's cold brew coffee. And people were so one office turned into two offices turned into 5 offices turned into 10 offices. And they're brewing. I'm helping them out with marketing. I actually at that time bought into the business because I was I believe in this so much. I want to invest in it. But they were still brewing out of the back of a restaurant, in these 5-gallon buckets. So they were barely keeping up with the, let's just say they were doing maybe 10 to 20 kegs a month or something like that. And so what ended up happening is really it boiled down to in 2018, it boiled down to they're we love this product and everything, but we just the guy who was running it at the time as the managing person was running a restaurant. So he's like, I don't have the time to do it, but we believe in this business. So I left a really, really like high paying, nice cushy job to be a part of what I've always wanted to do and really like take over start a business in a sense at the time. And prior to this, I had started Bare Roots Brewing Company, which is in Vista too, and I kind of helped to get off its feet, and then I kind of like backed off, and I was like, hey, I like that paycheck that I have in Orange County, but like I want to kind of do what we need to do here. And then the other founder of the business kind of took it over from there. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got a feel of that, and I was like, wow, that was really exciting. I want to do that, So I ended up leaving my job, and literally I remember first day I kind of walked in and I was like, oh man, like what are we going to do this? I mean, we're literally I'm looking at 5-gallon jugs, but I have this vision in my head of like what this business could become. So pretty much over the next couple of years, we grew the business. I pretty much took the model of the beer industry, right? We got these huge like tanks that normally would be used to brew beer, and we customized them and converted them into brewing coffee. And we use the same model that you'd use for beer too, where everything's kind of aseptic, where you don't add oxygen in the process. And then also we have a very proprietary filtering process that we do. We go through like multiple filtering processes where you get like the cleanest product. I mean, like there's like the cleanest product in here, And so we ended up doing that. They were in San Marcos at the time, so we moved into like a little suite for like a good year. And then we finally got our own brewery in Vista, where I always wanted to be. And the beginning of, we moved in January of 2020.
Okay.
And then, and I laugh because everyone knows what happened in the beginning of January of 2020, or at least in March, I'd say. And we were just killing it. I mean, when I talk about like, 10 to 20 kegs a month, at that time we were doing hundreds, and
That's awesome.
we were just seeing like it grow. And then obviously that happened and it went down. And that's a whole nother story of how we survived through being shut down. Because the funny thing is restaurants, offices, breweries, cafes, that's our business. What is all the things that shut down is literally those things. So we literally had zero business, but we just got creative and did some awesome things, teamed up with some amazing local businesses just to do some very out of the box things. And we survived, kept our doors open. And by the end of about 2020, at the end of 2020, we were able to kind of start ramping up. And then 2021 was like a really big year for us. We not only had our main, whatever we have, like it's like over 1,000 square foot brewery that we had moved into Vista. We actually took a kind of a leap of faith and expanded another like 1,500 square feet, because I just knew that it was gonna get bigger. And now we're like, we're about like 2,500 square feet brewery, and we're like packed to the seams.
Wow.
So we're looking at, expanding more, but we're in Vista, which I love. And I know that was my short version, but
I love it. Well, I keep listening because it's so interesting and so fascinating. So how many employees do you have now?
Right now, we do everything with 3 employees.
Okay.
We're very small, but the awesome part about what we do is we're a manufacturer. So we work with, and shout out to our distribution company that's actually right next to us, but they're in Vista too, which is Kombucha on Tap. And so pretty much like I pretty much have like an entire team of people at my disposal that I don't have to pay for, which is kind of awesome. So our distribution company deals with all the logistics and everything. So like we make the product, and we do have some customers like you guys are, we actually like serve you guys direct, but the majority of our business, I'd say probably 70% of our business is done, our deliveries and everything is done through Kombucha on Tap, which is our distributor.
That's a really great point that you bring that up, because I think a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, you have to wear every hat, right? You have to do marketing. You have to manage the money. You have to come up with the ideas of what to make and how to make it and come up with those proprietary processes. But I think it's really wise as an entrepreneur to realize when to bring in strategic partnerships to help you focus on what you do best and let someone else handle the other details that maybe take more of your bandwidth than you need to use on those things. So I think that's really wise.
Yeah, I came from the world too where like, when we were looking at things, I'm like, okay, we need money. That's what we need right now. We need money to invest in bigger equipment, everything like that. So that's what I love doing. I love finding strategic partnerships. So I went and, we have a couple of investors that invest in the business that believe in it, and really great guys. And they gave us enough cash to be able to then expand in that direction. And then the crazy thing is like, even after the whole like COVID, year that we had, I was doing everything. I mean, I was literally like brewing, I was kegging, I was cleaning everything. I was doing all the deliveries that we do. I was doing all the payroll, accounting, everything. I mean, like I was literally like, I was the only, like, cause I didn't have any employees at that point cause I couldn't afford them because we didn't have any money. And I was barely paying myself. I wasn't paying myself enough to even really survive. But, it's like you go through those periods of time and then you learn to appreciate now. I have a full-time operations guy, I have a full-time brewery guy, I have these people that now I can now focus on the things that I love to do, which is like networking and dealing with we just went to like a huge company today, this like big bioscience company, and installed a massive unit, and just creating that community. That's what I love doing, especially in a work environment that isn't super creative. Like, I mean, obviously you guys here have this creative space, which is like spoiled, beyond belief, but most people don't. Most people are in cubicles, and they don't have this creative space. But something like coffee on tap, and we do through our distributor, we do like kombucha on tap and stuff like, so a lot of non-alcoholic things on tap, bring this kind of, it's like water cooler 2.0, it's like it brings this community where you can kind of come together, and, it's kind of like, that the way I described it is like a experience if you go for like a wine tasting or you go like a beer tasting, but you're doing coffee, which everybody loves coffee. And it's kind of this more experience that we like to kind of add to the workplace.
So do you think that as we all come out of COVID, people are returning to their offices, the workspace has changed? I mean, we hear from our business members all the time that's difficult to hire. It's difficult to keep employees engaged. What do you think coffee means to that kind of culture, that corporate culture? I mean, what does coffee, how does coffee contribute to that? So
that hasn't really, I mean, it's affected us a bit, the bigger corporations, but those were corporations that we didn't really service in the first place. You had like you had these big tech giants that they just started announcing that they're coming back. And it was funny because I remember when like these guys like Google were like, we're never coming back to the office. And then like a couple months later, they're like, we're coming back to the office. It's like when you see them kind of coming back, but it's a hybrid model, right? So I think that's the way of the future. It's so funny because everyone always say, okay, like the office model has completely changed. Nobody's coming back to work. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I don't believe that, because I've experienced what it's like to be in a true community of people, and there's nothing that compares to that.
The collaboration alone.
Absolutely.
For us at the chamber, we went remote like we were supposed to.
Yeah.
And we did an okay job, and we also were wearing lots of hats and doing lots of things. But when we brought ourselves back together as a team, it just is a whole different experience, and what we can accomplish as a team is so much more. And so I think it depends on the business. It depends on the work that they're doing. But totally. I definitely agree with you that there's power in collaboration, and sitting across from someone and having a conversation and having a cup of coffee and just having a chat and talking about how to solve problems. It is so much.
It's priceless. I mean, I ran teams at my old job. I ran teams of a couple dozen people, and that creative process could not have happened. And so that's like in marketing. But now that I'm in manufacturing, it's funny because people are like, "Oh, like did you work from home?" I'm like, I can't. I'm in manufacturing. It's like we make things, like literally make things. So it's not it's not something that you can necessarily do. So it's actually really cool because actually partnered up with a lot of different manufacturing companies now that have large people in the office that we are literally literally I've had people describe us as like we're their lifeblood like during the day, because they have this. So I don't know if you know, but cold brew coffee is like super caffeinated, and the way that we do ours, and I try not to give away too many trade secrets when I'm doing things like this. But the way that we do ours, it's more than what the average person would. It's more caffeine than the average cold brew, I should say. So, but the crazy thing with cold brew is it doesn't hit you like you would like hot coffee. Like hot coffee, I feel like you get this spike, and then all of a sudden you have like a major like, you know, what do they call it? Like the 2 o'clock slump or whatever. Cold brew is different. But people a lot of times, like we're in a lot of the FedExes and different things like that. And they're working 14, 16 hour days or whatever they are. And so, you know, we've actually teamed up with a lot of companies like that. And then also a lot of like, bioscience companies, which Vista has a lot of those,
Absolutely.
which is, I'm surprised. I'm like finding them all over the place, you know? And there's a lot of people in those offices. It's crazy. And so we're teaming up with a lot of that. So I'd say like, if you were to look at a percentage of our business, you have like, you know, we have like our cafe restaurant business. So like we're in all, like literally within like a stone throw of here of where we're at right now, we're in probably like a good, like dozen places, you know, Milk Organic, Swami's, all these other places that are in Vista. And those are great. We love partnering up with them. It's like, but we look at those as more like brand recognition, you know, people get to know us, but that's maybe like 10% of our business. The rest is legitimately like corporate offices and stuff like that. And sometimes we have offices of 10 people, you know, but some offices are 500 plus people. So that's really like our business model is like bringing coffee culture into the corporate setting, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to tell you, so full disclosure.
Yeah.
I am not really a coffee person.
Okay.
Because it hurts my stomach.
Yeah.
I love the flavor of coffee. I enjoy coffee. It just doesn't like me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I can drink this and it doesn't hurt my stomach. And so why? Why is that?
So
There's got to be a reason.
So some cold brew companies, you'll notice they won't say cold brewed. They'll say cold coffee, or they'll say something, because we truly cold brew. So our process is we bring in our beans. So like someone who's actually part of the company roasts it. He actually owns La Costa Roasting Company in Carlsbad. So Doug Novak, who's the man, he's been roasting for 30 plus years. He's amazing.
Wow.
But that's step number one, is we roast for cold brew. That's step number one. Normally people just roast for whatever, and then they just use those beans to cold brew. We literally, like, if you had our beans hot brewed, I've had them before. I don't love them, but our process of roasting is we specifically roast for cold brew, and then we do everything that we do, and we keep it at a certain temperature for 19 to 24 hours. We pull everything, we filter it. Heat never touches it, so you're not releasing any of those acids, which that's what's affecting potentially your stomach. You're honestly not getting a lot of those oils. You're not getting a lot of the stuff. Cold brew coffee is 70% plus less acidic than hot coffee. A lot of cold brew companies, though, they don't regulate their temperature. They put it in like a big vat, just with like a muslin bag, like you would beer, kind of, like you wrap it in a big, like, muslin bags are like just really like, they're almost like little like thinner nets that you kind of put everything in.
Like gauze.
Yeah, and they put it in there. They set a timer for however long. They pull it out, and then they do it. We again, like the process of like we brew like you would brew, or we brew coffee like you brew beer. Like along the entire process, we literally have like refractometers that we test like the color, like everything. We make sure that like every batch is like the right quality. And again, our filtering process is, most people just go through like one filter. We go through about 5 filters. So it's very different. And we use more coffee. I'm not going to say exactly how much more, but we use more coffee than what the average person would too. And the reason I've probably heard that like more than a dozen times is people come up to me like, oh, I don't even like coffee. And we'll go to a thing. I'll be like, just try it. And they taste it, and I'd say 9 out of 10 times they're like, man, like this doesn't have anything else in it. I'm like, no, it's straight black coffee. And the good thing about nitrogen too, all the nitrogen is the gas, right? But what it does with, you'll see like stouts and different things that have it. But coffee, it brings this the nitrogen kind of brings some of the sweetness out. It's really weird because if you just had this like cold brew, it would still be great and smooth. But when you have it like and it's starting to die down a little bit, but you can kind of still see it. When you have that like froth on the top, it like just like that, the micro bubbles, I think that's what they call them. They kind of release this like sweetness in the coffee. And we actually have two different coffees that we do too. So we have a single origin, which is what we're drinking today.
Okay.
Which is a Honduran single origin from one region. But we also have a blend that's much more like bold, and it's a blend of Ethiopian, Indonesian, and South American beans. And it's like, it kind of dances all over the place when you drink it. Like, it's kind of like the way I like to describe it, like I was saying, wine, like you'll taste a different taste on like the tip of your tongue, the back of your tongue. And then all of a sudden it settles, super chocolatey, like different things. So yeah, it matters what you do too. You can use, it matters what coffee you're using, like kind of what you're going to taste. And cold brew is very pure too. So you're going to taste everything, the way we make it. So it's like, you can't hide anything bad.
That's fascinating.
I always tell people try it black first. And then if you want to put like, a milk in it or something like that, it's fine. But sometimes it's sweet enough just straight out of the tap. So,
well, it's a great alternative too. I think we all consume so much sugar in our diets. So if you can find a way to enjoy something without adding sugar or anything else, it has natural sweetness, then I think that's it's good. It's good for the health. Yeah. It's good for the health.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned before about that, growing up in Vista and how important it was for you to be in Vista. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit, why does it matter to you to be in Vista?
Well, my dad had a business in Vista my dad, it's funny because he did a very similar thing that I did. And he's one of the reasons that it was easier for me to make the decision, because he was like, this is why I did it. And I was like, well, that's kind of why I want to do it. So backing up a little bit, he quit it. He's a contractor, and he was working for like a big company, like something like Dixie Line Lumber or something like that. And he was growing, like definitely like getting up there. And he, just one day he was like, I'm not seeing my family enough. And I want to have my own business. So he literally dropped everything, and he started his own like cabinetry company that was literally over in very near where our brewery is right now.
That's awesome.
And so I grew up with a dad who had his own business, who worked his tail off, but at the same time was able to make his own schedule. And I have an older sister. Like we got to go camping a bunch. We got to do a bunch of stuff, and it was great because he made his own schedule. We didn't necessarily grow up with a dad who was like, I only have this much paid time off, so we can only do X, Y, or Z. It's definitely those late nights that I remember him not coming home because he has to deal with issues, which I have to do the same thing. I think having that example kind of gave me that a little bit of that desire. And when I say born and raised Vista, I have been in Vista my entire life. My dad built a house over on Kings View, which I don't even like if people know Vista, but it was like the first home. Now there's like dozens of homes. They're in like a gated community, but he built that from the ground up. And then we lived right up the street here my entire life from like 4. So when we sold that house, we moved up the street from here. So from like 4 years old on, I've been in Vista. I literally probably rode a bike on the field that this building was built on. I remember nothing being around here, and it's been really cool to see how this has grown. And I've always had like kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. And I probably have like a journal of like 1,000 different business ideas that didn't work out. So I think my first taste was Bare Roots. That was kind of my first taste into like what it would look like to have my own business in Vista. So like dealing with the location, dealing with leases, like dealing with build outs, doing all this other stuff. And I was like, man, that was really hard, but it was really fun. Like if I'm going to be doing anything with, however many hours of my day, I want to do something that's fun like that. And so then when I had the opportunity to kind of do it myself, I wanted to do it. And the funny thing is I remember day one coming in, and I love San Marcos is great. Nothing against San Marcos. It's
They're lovely neighbors.
Yeah, they are. They're absolutely. North County in general is like, everyone's like amazing. I love North County, San Diego. It's probably the best around. So, but that was, I wanted to be in Vista. And so anytime we'd start looking at space, I was looking at Vista, and some of the guys were like, oh, there's this place in San Marcos. I'm like, no, I want to be in Vista. Oh, this place in Oceanside. No, I want to be in Vista. Like, I see what this is doing and the potential. And it's not even the potential, like the reality of like, we're literally doing things. It's not, we're not just talking about things in Vista. We're legitimately doing things.
It's not a future goal. It's happening.
No, exactly. I mean,
Right.
even like going down the art district right down the street, I'm like, holy crud. Like,
It's awesome.
that is amazing. And like, I remember seeing pictures of that and being like, I remember kind of just being like, is that really going to be here? Like, I just didn't picture it because, again, that area it didn't look like that. That's all I'll say before. So yeah, I wanted to be a part of the ever growing, ever expanding, Vista community. And now we are.
So what about, have you ever thought about kind of the legacy of being in Vista, growing up in Vista, having a business here in Vista, and kind of the legacy that leaves? I mean, we all someday leave this earth, right? And so hopefully we leave something behind that matters. Have you ever thought about that connection?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm married to a major type A personality, and she actually got me.
Shout out to the type A's.
Yeah, exactly. She has a local business too, September 9 Event House. She does, so she's like a corporate event planner and wedding planner.
Great.
And she homeschools our kids. She's a super woman for sure. But it's so funny because she is very, she's very like, especially before I had kids, she was very corporate minded. Like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my, I'm gonna check my boxes. I'm gonna get my 401k. I'm gonna do all this stuff. Nothing wrong with those things. But I was always like head in the clouds. She got me a shirt that said like type B. Yeah, type B personality. She got me this shirt that I used to wear a lot. And it's like, it's so how I've always been. And I mean, obviously, like when you talk about legacy, I mean, I got two daughters.
How old are they?
My youngest just turned 6 last week, and then my oldest is turning 9 next week.
What are their names?
Evangeline and Isley.
Okay.
So
beautiful.
Yeah, they are beautiful. They are a handful. So, but at the same time, it's the best. Like especially owning your own business, I think they get sick of me sometimes because I spend so much time with them. But yeah, I mean, I want to obviously leave as far as like professionally. I want to take care of my family, but of course I want to leave a legacy. Of course I want there to be something. My goal always is, I don't necessarily want to hold on to everything and be like, this is mine. It's like, no, like my favorite thing to do is hire people and like watch their lives change and their families change because of not necessarily what I'm doing, but what the business that I have been, honored to run is able to do for them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I love it. It's like, that brings me so much joy. And, yeah. And I'm actually really strong on my faith too. So obviously, when it comes to leaving this earth, I know where I'm going. So,
yeah.
But I definitely want to leave a professional legacy for sure. So,
yeah. Well, so, I mean, you talk about the joy of owning your business and running this business. What's hard about it?
Oh, I'd say, I mean, I didn't think that I was going to survive the last about a little over a year ago.
I'll cheers to that.
Yeah. Like my coffee's almost gone already.
Same.
But I not necessarily at my life, but like I didn't think that the business. I was like, well, it was a great idea. This isn't going to work out. And it's so funny because every single time someone would be like, you got to pivot. I just remember like thinking like down in my core, I was like, no, like I don't think that that's the correct thing to do. And I saw a lot of businesses pivot and it worked. It was a temporary fix. But now they're like kind of regretting that pivot because now they got to pivot back.
They're doing pirouettes.
Yeah,
they pivoted all the way around in a circle.
Totally. So
Yeah.
I would say like that was hard. Being the one, and I'm answering obviously to investors and stuff like that too. So when something doesn't go if you try something and it doesn't work out, you got to have that hard conversation, and those are not fun conversations at all. So I'd say the hard part is that you never have like that, like you never have like that super comfortable, blanket, because the reality is like everything could fall out overnight, which we pretty much saw that. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And the hardest part is that it all kind of lands on you personally too, because every business owner would probably relates with me with this, is a lot of the things that you do, you have to put in your own name. I mean, all the leases that we have, all the credit cards we have, everything is under my name. So the reality, if the business fails, it's not like I'm work for a company that I can just walk away. It's like, no, like that's, you have that thing that sticks with you. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little stressful. But when you have something that you're confident that can succeed, like it's so funny when I first came into the business, and again, I'm married to a type A. So when I literally remember sitting down and she's like, okay, like, so what are you paying yourself? And I told her, and she's like, are you serious right now? I was like, yes, but give me X amount of time. And she was like, okay, I trust you, but this does not make any sense to me. Like, how are you going to have a successful company making cold brew coffee? That's like, I remember her even saying that. She's like, I believe in you, but I don't know. I just don't see it. But where we're at right now is exactly where I saw it when it was in 2018. I literally the exact thing that we're doing right now is where I was like, okay, this is what I envisioned. It just took a little bit longer to get there than I initially thought. But yeah, it's a daily battle, and you can't just call somebody to take care of things that most of the time you have to take care of yourself. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I hear when you're talking, I don't know if I want to use the word confidence, mm-hmm. but maybe this just innate understanding of like, this is what it is supposed to be. Mm. So you mentioned your faith. Is that something that comes from faith? Is that confidence? Is it optimism? How would you define that characteristic about yourself?
I think it's both. I think it's a mixture of both. I think it's a mixture of optimism, my wife, who I deal with the most in this, she's like, oh, Mr. Optimist, or my mother-in-law. Like, she's like, when I talk about California, how I'm like really hopeful of like California, a lot of things. And she's like, oh, Mr. Optimist. I'm like, no, like I don't let the little things like make me think that everything is, going to fail or whatever. And so it's definitely optimism, but obviously faith. I mean, like that's a huge part of my life. It's literally something that I take with me when I wake up in the morning till when I go to sleep at night. So, I do truly believe that like the Lord's hand is on us, and I truly believe that we have this strength and this power that's physically impossible for us to have ourselves, that follows with us, I know that, because I feel it every mm-hmm. day. So that's definitely a huge part of like continuing to move forward for sure. And also just my family. I mean, like, I'm going to fight for my family, like if this business, which is not going to, but if it had to close tomorrow, which, again, it won't, but if it had to, I would do what I had to do. If I have to go get 3 jobs, if I have to do whatever, mm-hmm. like I'm going to take care of it. But I'm really thankful that I don't have to do that, and that the business has been, blessed, and the people that work for me, I have some amazing people that work with me, and we're all very, I think it's the right word, like even-minded.
Like-minded.
Like-minded. That's yes. the word I'm looking for. We're yes. very like-minded mm-hmm. with a lot of different things, and not that I only like hire people that think and feel exactly like how I do, because I think if you do that, you end up being in an echo chamber, which it can be unhealthy as a business owner. But we're very like-minded in the way that I hire, very driven people that work hard, and honestly, like, I couldn't do it without them. Mm-hmm. And I realize, I realize that every day when when I see everything that happens in the business, and my piece is like a little slice now that I have to do, but a big portion of it is people that I have to trust that will get that stuff done. So I legitimately couldn't do it without them. So, but I would say, partially to answer your question, I definitely think that it's optimism. I definitely think it's faith, and I definitely think it's surrounding yourself around people that you trust. And also having a super strong community. I mean, literally, like, the Vista community and the community of people in North County has been like, it's huge.
I want to just stop for 1 second because I just want to reiterate that I completely agree with you that the Vista community in North County, specifically Vista, we lift each other up. We're not letting anybody fall through the cracks. And I've seen that time and again. Since I moved here in 2003, since moving here in 2003, and then particularly during COVID, everybody stepping up to look out for each other, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's the business down the street, and your money's tight, but you're still supporting that business. I mean, we really look out for each other. So I absolutely agree with you, and I had to just jump in and just wholeheartedly agree.
No, for sure. And something I didn't really talk about, and I don't necessarily talk about this in every single interview that I do or whatever is
I'm getting a scoop.
No.
Give me the scoop.
No, it's not. It's something a little more personal.
Okay.
But one of the things that when we're talking about being driven and being optimistic and different things like that, one of the things that drives me as far as the business goes is at the end of 2020, it was the end of 2020, my business partner, because I had a business partner, he had a heart attack right in front of me and passed away.
I'm so sorry.
And he's like 57 or maybe younger than that. He was like 50. He was young. Had a kid, left a lot of very tragic things that happened in that. Amazing guy. Like, this was like Steeping Giant was like a part of him, but his name was Anthony, and he literally, I remember being like, man, like, I even want this company to succeed even more because I know that's what he wanted. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for like I'm not saying that for like selfish reasons. Like it drove me more because I'm like, I want, cause he spent, I mean, he was the founder. It was his legacy. He was one of the founders. Okay. Yeah. Him and his brother were like the founders of the company. And so, speaking of legacies, I carry him with me. Mm-hmm. I really do. I carry his memory with us, with this business, every day when we go out. So I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I think that's really important to share. And thank you for sharing that because there are people that we carry with us that inspire us for different reasons. And that does give a whole nother layer to that inspiration. And just, when you have to dig deep, you just dig a little deeper because you know that that's what he would do or would want you to do. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So you talked a little bit about your roots, how you got started, a little bit about navigating COVID. Do you want to, anything else you want to share about your COVID non-pivot?
Yeah. So a lot of people with us they were like, hey, you need to get into canning because retail's the way to go right now because nobody's coming back to the offices. This is what people were saying in the very beginning. COVID has changed it forever, blah, 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 blah. I literally remember being like, going to it and they're like, you can't even touch a soda machine. What makes you think that people are going to want to touch a tap again? And like, I just remember thinking, I'm like, okay, like everything seemed temporary to me. Like when I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, I understand like why this is happening now, but it never seemed like it was going to be like a permanent thing. So that was, people were like, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to can. I don't want to, I wanted to kind of stay away from pivoting too much to the direct to consumer because that's just not our model. I'm not like bagging on that model. If that's what people want to do, that's awesome. But we are a B2B, like we're way more B2B. And yes, we'll go directly to consumer. We have like, again, we'll do like pouches to your door, stuff like that. What we don't really do, that's like a very like if the business is a body, that's like a fingernail. That's like kind of what I say. It's like a very small portion of our business. Yeah, I mean, it was really just kind of hunkering down and being like, okay, like this is the things we can do to keep our doors open and
staying true.
But I will tell you, it wasn't like we were not doing enough business to keep our doors open, period. I don't think most people were in our situation, but the things like the Paycheck Protection Program, I think that the county went through a round and we got some money to keep our doors open with that. And then the city went through a round and we got some money to get. So every
through the
single
city's grant program
exactly.
that we
so,
administer.
All the grant programs that we were a part of was literally, that was like, it wasn't just like it was legitimately like a lifeline, every single one of them. Because it was like, okay, like we can only put so much on a credit card to, do X, Y, or Z. The great thing about, or at least, a thing that was made it a little easier is people like our landlords, who are based in Vista too. I was like, hey guys, like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to do whatever I can. And they were so understanding. We ended up not having to be that late on some things because of some of these grants we got, but they were like, all right, like we'll give you till the end of the month, or we'll give you X amount of time to get this stuff in order.
They worked with you.
Yeah, they absolutely worked with us, which was huge.
And thankfully they had the ability to do that.
Totally.
Right? So that's very fortunate.
Yeah, and people that took advantage of that, that's a whole nother story. But,
right.
It's like that's a whole nother podcast.
Exactly.
Maybe with some language in it. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But I really think that it was just really kind of getting down. I think that that whole experience really makes you appreciate things a little bit more, because you're like, hey, at least it's better than that year.
Right. Absolutely. So for anybody who's listening, if you had a chance to tell them, whether they're a community member, business owner, elected official, whoever's listening, if you could tell them how to support your business, what would you say?
How to support the Steeping Giant?
Yeah.
Honestly, a big portion of our stuff is just word of mouth.
So tell a friend.
Yeah,
that owns a business.
Yeah, tell a friend that owns a business.
Yeah.
We do free. We'll do free cold brew coffee hours, or cold brew coffee tastings. So we'll either roll in a kegger it, or we'll kind of come and get a little hoity-toity on how to explain the coffee and stuff like that. We kind of geek out on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we love being a part of the community, and again, we're doing that obviously with Vista. We want to be a part of more events, where we can the point of an event for us is to get in front of people that then could have our services in their offices or whatever. We're not a vendor necessarily, but we're doing the Strawberry Festival this year.
Awesome.
We're doing different things like that, but it's really just to get in front of the community to say, hey, we want to be the premier cold brew company of North County and Southern California. That's what we want. And
then the world.
Yeah, and then the world. But the crazy thing is we barely scratched the surface of what we can even do. So San Diego was talk about a lifeline for us. So I'd say pre-COVID, 80% of our business was Orange County.
Okay.
Right now, as of today, maybe 5% of our business is in Orange County, because a lot of them are just opening up now, which is great because that's the cherry on top. Now we have even more business. But San Diego, we were opening up, customers in San Diego, at the end of 2020, because they were finding ways to stay open, and it was very different, obviously. Mm-hmm. But then, that was amazing for us to be able to kind of be a part of that, and to kind of get creative and flexible with them too. So, but yeah, I would say just word of mouth. I mean, feel free to go on, we do brand recognition. So go on our Instagram at the Steeping Giant and, like us, follow us, see what we're doing. We try to put every single place that we open up, we try to put on there, just kind of give a shout out to the local businesses. We just shouted out the Film Hub, I think, that last time. So that just got on there. I honestly would just say just letting your friends know and going and supporting the businesses that we're on tap at, because that makes everybody money, right? If you go down to, Milk Organics down the street, or you go down to, again, Swami's, or you go to, some of these places that have us on tap, you buy a glass of cold brew. that they're making money, and that just makes that means that we just have to deliver them more coffee. So it makes sense.
It's a win-win.
All around. Yeah, exactly. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few last few questions
Yes.
for you. Call them my rapid fire. So
Okay.
tell me a book that you think everyone should read.
A book everyone should read. Well, it's a series of books.
Okay.
But I mean, the Lord of the Rings series is probably if you haven't read that, you need to read that. I'm kind of a
have read
nerd.
it.
Kind of a nerd when it comes to that. I have actually a collector's chess set in my man cave that is all Lord of the Rings. So,
Cool.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought earlier you were about to throw out a Lord of the Rings reference, but
I'm
you were talking
holding
about your
back.
company, and you're like, my precious. But
My process.
okay, so tell me a song that you always have to turn up. It's your jam. Anytime you hear it, it makes you feel good.
I would have to say, I'm going to get a little cheesy here, but I'll have to say, my favorite records are probably the first Coldplay record, which is Parachutes, when they were just riding gold all the time. And then the Continuum record from John Mayer. And every single song on all those records is a jam. But Fix You probably from one of the Coldplay records, because that's the song that we walked down the aisle on, me and my wife. So, and we had like a full organ, like a full church. It was pretty awesome. But that's probably
nice.
that's a pretty awesome song. So,
That's a great
Yeah.
song. Okay, tell me something that inspires you.
collaboration with other people. The thing that makes me like go away from the conversation and like be like, I got to do something, is probably just like partnering up with like-minded people, and making something cool. So
I love it.
yeah.
That's a good one. Okay, last question.
Yes.
Give me a Vista business that you think deserves a shout out.
I would say a Vista business that deserves a shout out would be, it's a hard one. Well, I just came from there, so I'll shout them out. But Milk Organics is pretty amazing. They have the best green smoothie bowl I've ever had. There's so many businesses, that's probably the first one that comes to my mind.
The first one that comes to mind is the
And they have us on
perfect one.
tap and all that
Yeah,
stuff. So
that's fantastic.
yeah, perfect.
I want to thank you so much, Joe, for being here today and being my guest on Velocity. All right, last cheers. Well, you
Cheers.
got like a
Nothing in my
tiny
glass.
slurp, nothing. And thank you all for listening. If you like what you heard, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and tell a friend. Help us move Vista forward with Velocity. The Vista Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization which serves as a catalyst to business growth. Visit us online at vistachamber.org.